Okay, so we've played 2 weeks of fantasy football, and despite my clear instructions and explanation of this in league notes and in emails, that you guys don't understand free agent acquisition budget, or FAAB. You don't understand blind bidding and what it means to have a silent auction for players to add to your team. So we're going to have Billy talk to us about waivers here, and I hope that this crayon drawings will maybe get through to you guys. So say hi to Billy. Billy plays fantasy football. Billy really likes fantasy a lot. So he pays attention to his team and his league and manages his team actively. Sometimes Billy needs new players. He sees guys that are available and unrostered that he thinks can be a difference maker. Maybe he got over a rough stretch of schedule. Maybe one of Billy's guys got hurt and he needs a replacement. All of these are really common reasons you might want to add a guy to your team. In traditional resetting waivers in inverse order of standings, which is ESPN's default. So this is really for new leagues and filthy casuals. The player who is in last gets to pick first. And it does this every week. Whoever's last picks first, the best team gets the last pick. So this is meant to push bad teams up and good teams down. So you say, oh, well, that makes it more competitive, but as we all know, this really isn't fair to the players who've been managing their teams well, because why should you be punished for actually paying attention to your team and putting together a good team? So the situation is Billy has just had one star player break his ankle and is out for the year, and the other guy got hit by a bus. So he's just lost two guys. Now he's 6-0, which is great, but he just lost two huge difference makers that he has to replace with depth from his bench, and he's probably not going to win his championship because of this, despite jumping out to a huge lead with a great team, because he, at 6-0, had the best record in his league for weeks and was constantly last in the waiver order, so he never got to pick up anyone good, like Mr. 0-6 here, who gets the new hotness now every week. So Billy's screwed, despite managing his team better than anyone in the league. There's something wrong with that. So Billy also heard of non-resetting waivers, where the waivers do not reset every week, and a guy who is on top of the list for waivers can sit there, and then when he wants the guy he wants, nobody can contest it. He is guaranteed to get that. And then he goes to the back of the line, and whoever's at the top always gets to pick. So it seems fair because you're not resetting the waivers, and eventually everybody's going to have their turn at the top, as long as everyone gets at least one player. The problem with that is it promotes a style of management where doing nothing is good for your team. Not managing your team actively is good. This makes for boring leagues where everyone's just sitting on their waiver claims instead of actually using them to get good players into the pool. So the problem here is if when Billy goes and gets a guy because he's finally waited to get to the top of the waiver order, next week comes along and Olaf the Mighty is now a viable pickup because the guy playing in front of him just lost his job or hurt himself. And Billy can't get Olaf because he used his pick last week and was at the bottom of the line. And he's screwed. And this purple guy, Timmy here, is rewarded for sitting on his thumbs for 5 weeks, 6 weeks, 7 weeks, or whatever. And now he gets Olaf despite not actively making acquisitions for his team. And this reward, like I said, this rewards sitting on your thumbs, and I think that's stupid too. Billy also thought that was dumb, and he contemplated quitting fantasy football forever because the whole system seems to be working against you if you're playing well, which is stupid. I agree, and the angel of fantasy football agrees, who came down upon Billy and sung the holy song and said the holy word, FAAB. Billy says, what the heck's FAAB? FAAB stands for Free Agent Acquisition Budget. Sometimes it's called Free Agent Blind Bidding, which will be obvious in the following set of drawings. So Free Agent Blind Bidding, you decide you want a player, you put a dollar value on him. You have a budget for the year of $100 Monopoly money, or sometimes some leagues do 300, 1,000, 3,000, whatever. It doesn't matter. It's your budget for the whole season, and that's it. You can blow it all in week 1. You can sit on it and then use it on the last week for your championship game. And if you want, you can do like most people and spend it as you go. The catch is when you bid on a player, you don't know what other people are bidding. So you have to bid what you think he's worth for you. And we'll talk about that just shortly. Again, $100, very common amount. It's nice to equate what you spend on a player in terms of a percentage of your budget very quickly. So if I spend 35% of my budget to get the following star free agent, then I know that I've spent $35, and it's 35% of my budget. So, and a lot of times you'll read on the internet, how much should I pay for a guy? They will talk about him in terms of your percentage of your FAAB. So just using $100 is a nice round number. So like I said, blind bidding, there's 2 rules here with blind bidding. There's 2 rules that you need to really care about. The first is blind. So if you want a guy, you got to bid for what you think he's worth. If someone bids $5 and someone bids $15 and someone bids $25, the guy who bids $25 gets him. The guy who bid less than that do not get him, but they get to keep their money so they can spend it on somebody else later, which is really nice. You can make short bids and kind of force people to pay a reasonable amount for a guy, or you can just bid a lot because you know you've got to have him because you really think he's something special. Or if you know your league well enough, you might bid low on purpose, knowing that your league may not be savvy enough to pick up on the guy, or you know that everybody thinks he's going to suck, but you want him. You can save money that way and be savvy about it too. So there's lots of strategy involved in how you spend your FAAB. The other thing is if you do spend all your FAAB, you're not completely screwed. You can make $0 bids. Excuse me. You can make $0 bids, but you will obviously be beat by anybody with $1 or more. And if you and another person bid the same amount of money for a player, then ESPN leagues, at the very least, default back to waiver priority or non-resetting waivers or whatever. And that only happens in the tiebreaker situation, though, which is much less common than it would be otherwise. So you're not totally screwed. So Billy is very happy to have a budget that he can manage and manage skillfully and be rewarded and get the players that he wants for managing his budget wisely instead of sitting on his thumbs, waiting on his number 1 pick to come up, his waiver priority to be number 1, or rather than tanking early in the season on purpose just so he can pick up the difference makers and try to make the playoffs that way. I mean, all that gaming in the system is done now because you know you have a budget and you just bid it and you use it throughout the year, and if you use it poorly, you're going to be in bad shape. And if you use it wisely and stretch it, or if you pay a lot of money for a guy early in the season but he helps you for 16 games and you win the championship, then that's using your budget wisely, and it's really smart. When Billy loses a guy, he has the money to replace him. He's not stuck with the last bid, or the last selection there, the last waiver priority. He can just get the guy he wants. Because he can pay more than everybody else as long as he has the budget. So Billy wins his fantasy leagues now that he is playing smartly and using a budget wisely instead of getting screwed by playing well or getting screwed because he's not sitting on his thumbs managing his team. So happy ending here. We all love FAAB. FAAB is fair. FAAB is engaging. FAAB promotes managing your team actively, and is otherwise just the best way to play fantasy football. Auction drafts are also great. Maybe I'll save that for another series of crayon drawings. But Billy wants you to use FAAB. Listen to Billy. Use FAAB. Make your bids next week. They process Wednesday early in the morning. You can bid as soon as the players are locked in to start for the week. And hopefully you'll see some intelligent bids on Tuesday and a lot less complaining. So, thanks.